Hello and welcome back to the AL Central Rundown. I'm Eric, and with me today is only.
I'm Lee.
And I'm Dan.
Uh, I don't want to cause speculation, but Oren and Sam are not in. The White Sox and the Royals are playing. Who's to say they didn't just get in a fist fight and knocked each other out? Speculation.
Many people are saying this. By many people, we mean only Eric.
I've seen it.
I got my money on Oren.
I don't know. Sam seems like just the bigger dude. Like I feel like Oren might. I don't. We've never seen each other in person, but I feel like Sam is like 7'2" and Oren is like my height, which is only like 5'10". I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, we will probably be doing something a little bit special for the Royals, maybe the day this episode drops. So we're recording this Wednesday night. Right now, the Twins are playing Baltimore. I think that's the only game going on right now.
Tigers
And
are about to start Rocky against the Rockies.
so we might just talk about the Royals on Friday and post that pretty quick. So if you're only here for the Royals, I guess you can skip this one, but please don't. I'd like to think we're somewhat interesting, but we understand if you do. So we're just going to cover the rest of the division as is. We're not going to talk about the Cleveland White Sox series when we get to it. And actually, we don't even have predictions this week because no Central team plays each other in the next 2 weeks or in the next week. So that's interesting. But in the news, and if you can hide her excitement, Lee, I'll let you break it.
Kenta Maeda has been DFA'd. Everyone, break out the champagne. The day has arrived. He is no longer on this team. I no longer am subjected to watching him throw balls outside of the zip code of the strike zone and then hit a guy immediately afterwards. But yeah, so he's been DFA'd. That was broke on Wednesday, I believe. Not Wednesday, last Thursday. So it just came out earlier today, actually, that it's official. He's been placed on unconditional release waivers. So if anyone wants him, he's available.
They don't.
But yeah, yeah, I'm glad the team decided to just eat the money and release him. We brought up Tyler Owens temporarily to take his place, and then Bo Brisky got off the injured list, so he came back up. Yeah, I'm glad we just released him, bit the bullet, yeah, eat the money, and give the spot open to guys who are younger guys who are doing good stuff in the minor leagues and deserve to have a spot in the bullpen. I think it's a sign that this team is is competing. Otherwise, they just let him sit on the bench, come in once every 5 games. But we're opening up the set for someone who might be able to perform a little bit better. Yeah, I mean it was just a bad signing at the time. It looked like it could be good, something good. A veteran when we had a lot of really young guys on the team, but just didn't work out. He kind of fell off a cliff there.
And like what's interesting with it, because the Twins traded for him just before the COVID season. He had like a Cy Young. I think it was the year Bieber actually won it in 2020.
I think he finished second, didn't he, that year?
Yes, he did. He was great that year, and he threw a bunch of pitches, and they were all like they were sharp. They were in the zone. Everyone was missing it. Then he had Tommy John surgery in 2020. At the end of 2021, missed all of 2022, and he was 35 years old when he came back. He was erratic with the Twins, but it was a pretty easy decision to not re-sign him or to obviously even offer him a qualifying offer. So the weird thing I think was kind of fun about his contract is he made more money with the Tigers than he did with the Twins or the Dodgers. So he signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Tigers. The Dodgers, if anyone remembers this, he signed an incredibly team-friendly deal where his base salary was $3.5 million a year, and then he had like performance bonuses based off start games started. Well, the Dodgers, every time they would get to September, he wouldn't be in their playoff rotation, so then they would move him to the bullpen, and he lost like he could get up to a $10 million salary, and I think they only paid him like the minimum for the entire time. So then when he went to the Twins, he then gets the COVID season, so that cut his salary, and then he just got his base salary for being injured. So really sucks for Kenta as far as timing. So I'm glad he got his money a little bit, but
Yeah.
interesting year.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a decent signing for us. Give a chance on a guy who is, getting older, but we also needed a veteran presence. Last year, we still do, and especially last year, a very young, inexperienced pitching staff. So, I mean, it made sense, but this didn't really work out. Uh,
No.
Shout out to the game I went to last year. It was against Cleveland. He gave up 2 home runs in the first inning. That was a lot of fun. Shout out! I think that was his second to last start before he was moved to the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just never worked out. Glad we moved on from him. I guess I feel bad for the guy, but also,
No, you don't. Don't you lie to us.
he was doing atrocious. So I don't. No, I'm over it.
He's still going to get paid the rest of the year. He'll be fine.
Yeah, he's got his 10 million for this year. I think he'll be fine.
I would say in happier news, but you're already happy. But Riley Green is now the second Central player to win AL Player of the Week. So what did he do?
Yeah, so he went off because I guess he loves hitting in Houston. We need to extend him before he decides he wants to hit in Houston for the rest of his career. So he was 13 this past week. He was 13 for 28, 7 runs, 4 home runs, 8 RBIs. 2 of those home runs came in the second game against the Angels, where he hit 2 home runs in the 9th inning and is the first player in MLB history to hit 2 home runs in the 9th inning. So that's really cool. Yeah. So
this is the same guy that was 0 for 23 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so he went through the worst slump of his career and then came out and hit 4 home runs in a week. So now he's back up to a 800 OPS and stuff. So he's rolling. Good stuff. In other minor news, Veerling is rehabbing with Toledo. He hit a home run the other day, so he looks great. Margot was officially optioned to AAA, so he's off the 40-man roster. But he took the option to stay in AAA, so he's still within the organization. So we'll be able to use him if we need him. But since Veerling is going to be coming back soon and Meadows isn't too far behind, and Baez is great in center, it just made more sense to keep him in Toledo.
Sure. No,
that's all my news.
Well, good. So after I went on a rant about how the Twins bench was absolutely garbage, they actually got some reinforcements. One, it's a big name, and the other was an all-star last year. So Royce Lewis and Willie Castro were both activated. The Twins then sent down Edouard Julien and Mickey Gasper. It's just needed. What I'm showing up on the screen is just Willie Castro and Lewis the last 3 years. You'll notice for Lewis, he only has a 3 WAR, but if you look at the games, he's only really played less than a season worth of games. And up until, we'll say, the collapse last year, he was out superhuman good. He would come off his multiple IL stints, and then he would hit a home run always. In 2023, he hit 5 grand slams because he was a god. And then the only time he really struggled was the last 6 weeks of the season. I couldn't figure out how to pull up his stats for that, but even with that, he's the third guy, right? It's Buxton, Correa, Lewis. If he is Royce Lewis of all-star caliber Royce Lewis, that's a huge addition for a Twins offense that it looks like it's starting to pick up. They've also played some pretty bad pitching. But that would be huge. And then Willie Castro is probably the best minor league signing the Twins have had, who, sorry, Lee, he was with Detroit for a couple of years. They cut him before he was arbitration eligible, and he's been their utility guy. He has been the depth. Last year, I think he set a record that he played 20-plus games in 6-plus positions, and he was good or decent at all of them. And he can bounce around and give everyone days off, and he's just a decent hitter. OPS plus 101, you'll take that. The guys he replaced, Julian, who had a couple good days or a couple good games or a 2-week stretch where it looks like he was turning around, just kind of collapsed. He had a 71 OPS plus, and then Mickey Gasper, who was one of those quad A players I was kind of going off with last year, and outside of the mustache and looking like Super Mario, didn't really bring a whole lot. But So yeah, they're down in AAA. We'll see what happens there. It just depends on, again, if those two can just be themselves. That's now two major league bats that the Twins didn't have before. So hopefully that lengthens the lineup and they're getting it. But they're playing well recently. We'll get into that in a minute. But yeah.
Billy Castro, originally signed by the Cleveland Indians.
Oh really? I didn't
So
know that actually.
He was in each organization of the people present here at some point.
Wild. Yeah, in 2020, he was like a Rookie of the Year candidate for that shorted season, and then he wasn't for the next full season.
Well, like not for. I feel like the Tigers had a lot of former Twins for a while. Like they had Jonathan Scope and T.J. Crone, and they had Ron Gardenhire for a couple of years. They had
Yeah,
it
that's
felt like Akil Baddoo they stole, which turned
Yeah.
out to not be a terrible thing, but
hey, it was great for 2 months.
that's right. And like it was a hell of a 2 months. But so it was kind of nice for the Twins to take back from Detroit for once.
Yeah, for once, I guess.
Next up for Cleveland, I don't feel like we talk about Jose Ramirez enough, and he hit a couple milestones. So Dan, why don't you brag about him?
So naturally, one of the favorite things that baseball media loves to do is talk about how Jose Ramirez doesn't get talked about enough instead of talking about him. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk about him.
There you
go. So in the 10th inning of a game last Thursday that we're going to talk about here in a moment, I think, Jose Ramirez stole second base. Upon doing that, he became one of 7 players in the history of this sport to have 250 home runs and 250 steals, all with one team. The other 6 names are Jeter, Biggio, Bonds, Sandberg, Yount, and Mays. For those of you keeping track at home, those are 6 Hall of Famers.
Yep.
So rare company for him to be in for that particular stat. And, his resume continues to grow over time.
Right. Do you get the sense, mate, I was thinking about this the other day, I was thinking randomly him and Stephen Kwan, but do you believe, like right now, if he retires this year, is Jose Ramirez a Hall of Famer?
That's a really good question. First of all, before I get to that, I think about Stephen Kwan all the time too, so don't feel weird about that.
He's so dreamy.
Hey, you said it. Yeah, I think
you thought it.
I think he's finally getting to the point now where he has played long enough at a high enough of a level that we can start saying that now he's at a place where he would be a Hall of Famer. I think his case is much better off if he's able to continue to accumulate, obviously.
Right.
But I think we're also getting kind of into a new era with the Hall of Fame, and it's going to be more so with pitchers. But we're measuring a Hall of Famer a lot differently than we used to, and I think he pops in a lot of the ways that we now think about Hall of Famers. So maybe if he doesn't get to 500 home runs someday or something to that effect, it won't matter as much as it might have 30 years ago. So yeah, I think at this point he's starting to get to that place where that would be a consideration.
What's really impressive is how many times he's been in like the top 10 MVP voting.
Yeah.
Like every year it's like, oh, he's 7th. Oh, he's 6th. He's always up in the conversation. Like I don't know if he'd ever be that guy to get an MVP, especially because he's 32. He's kind of, but like he's always in that conversation, I think, and that's something that should matter.
Yeah, he's been top 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 times, top 5, 5 times, and I think you're right. He's just steady, and so there's an element there where he's never going to have like the Ohtani year where he goes 50.
Yeah,
he almost went 40, 40, 40 last year, but there's always going to be somebody that I think has that explosive year that maybe tops him. But man, if you're looking for consistency year after year, I mean, look no further.
Well, the only year he hasn't gone above a 3 WAR is 2020, and that's because nobody played more than 60 games, and he still gave it a go. Like he has been remarkably consistent since 2016.
He carried that 2020 offense too that made the playoffs. So I think there was an argument there over Jose Abreu. Oren isn't here to defend that, so oh well. But that was probably obviously the closest because that's the time he got second place. But yeah, he's just year after year pencil him in. I don't expect that to stop anytime soon.
Do you think now I'm moving off of Jose Ramirez for a little bit, but do you think Stephen Kwan is going to be the new guy? Nobody talks about how good he is, but they're going to talk about how underrated he is. I feel like that's being talked because nobody talks about him except for we'll talk about him.
I think, for lack of a better way of saying it, his game is quirky enough where people will talk about it. Like, it's not, Jose goes out there and he hits 25 home runs and steals 25 bases and plays a high-level third base and drives in 100 runs every year. And that's like stuff that, it's, don't get me wrong, it's an amazing production, but he's not, one of two players in the league that is the best at not swinging and missing and contact and speed. Kwan's different enough that I think people will talk about it. Like when I listen to some of the other podcasts out there that we hope to be on level footing with someday, they talk about Kwan a little bit. And it's because I think he separates himself in that way. He's just a different kind of ball player. And the one thing I will say is people look at the Gold Gloves and go, oh, his defense is so good. That's a thing where, like, I don't think that outside of the awards, the hardware, people don't realize how good he is in left field.
Right.
He's insane. It's ridiculous.
That's a ton of balls. Like,
it also doesn't help. You say he's a great defensive left fielder. Well, that's like the second least valuable position to be a great defender at too.
Agreed.
Which hurts him. Like he's still phenomenal. He could probably play. Can he play center and passably? Is he that?
He probably could. And when he first came up, and we still are. We're going to talk about outfields in a minute. We were searching in the desert for a center fielder that wasn't Miles Straw for quite a while. Fans were like, "Well, why doesn't Kwan play left or play center?" And they like Kwan in left.
Right.
And I think what that comes down to is that 17-foot wall in left field.
Yeah,
it takes time to learn how to play that thing. And he's got it down to the science the same way Michael Brantley did before him, basically. So I think they find value in particular in that ballpark for a left fielder that maybe doesn't, and I think it's marginal, but it matters to the organization.
This is a kind of not necessarily off topic, but does Progressive Field, do they have a bigger left field than right field?
I believe it's fairly uniform off the top of my head.
The only reason I ask is like Comerica is just the Grand Canyon, so like everywhere is big in Comerica, but
it's all big. It's pretty.
For the Twins in the Metrodome and then in Target Field, left field is much bigger than right field, so they want to put their second best defender in left, just because there's more space to cover. So I was wondering if that was the thought with him too.
You got the left field wall being 17 foot high. Also, the deepest part of the ballpark is slightly offset to left center, where it's 410 to like just to the left of center.
Okay.
But I remembered those items, but I just looked up and it's fairly uniform pole to pole. I think it's 320 to right, 325 to left, and then 370 and 375 left and right power alley. So 5 feet either way, not a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, not that this is much of a transition because we're already talking about him, but to give him some flowers, Bleacher Report actually just named Stephen Kwan the best left fielder in the game.
Yeah, and well-deserved based upon everything we were kind of just describing a moment ago. He's been off to a fantastic start offensively again, hitting over 300. I think I looked it up last night, about 1.5 WAR so far, which would put him on, give or take, about 6 WAR pace, maybe a little bit lower than that. So, hitting at the top of the order and been.
Sorry, Dan. I'm 98% sure I accidentally cut you off instead of the screen share, so that's my bad. I took you off screen there for a second. I did just want to talk about that list as I cut you off, so I guess I could have just interrupted you and you could do nothing about it. That same list, I thought I just kind of took a look at the names. Riley Green was third, Trevor Larnick was 17th, Andrew Benintendi was 24th, and then MJ Melendez, who's no longer in the league, they had 5th or 25th. And then I got a chuckle because they had Jose Altuve as number 4, which is a legacy, but that is an interesting choice, but that still doesn't mean Quan can still not, like, multiple things can be true. Quan can still be the one of the top left fielders. So
We can debate if they got number 4 right, but I think we all kind of, there's a consensus there that they got number 1 right.
Yeah.
they got their clicks.
To be fair, MJ Melendez at 20, try to tell Sam there were 5 left fielders worse than MJ Melendez.
Yeah. Okay. So the next up, just for White Sox news, there's not much. Speaking of Andrew Benintendi, he went on the IL this year recently, left hamstring strain. He's been all right. He certainly was better this year than he was last year. 100 OPS plus. They'll take that, considering it looked like that contract was kind of an albatross. They called up Nick Maton, who's been up a couple years with them. But as I was looking at that, and we're going to talk about their outfield here in a bit, but the White Sox have had 22 separate position players this year, which is so many players to have in the first month and a week of the season. It seems to track. No, just thought that.
How many games have the White Sox played? I'm trying to figure out how many players they're on pace to play by the end of the season.
They have played 36 games.
They're on pace to play 99 position players by the end of the year.
Got to expand that 40-man roster. And at this point, why not? Just ship them all around. Like, just flip. Who's Birmingham? Is that their AAA? Just flip their lineups every other week with the White Sox. See what happens. But and then not really Central related news, but the Athletic came out with an article the other day, and Foul Territory also picked up on it. So I just wanted to talk about it for a bit because it does affect the Central, but in the way that it affects everyone. So MLB over the offseason didn't shrink the strike zone, but they shrank the buffer zone quite a bit. So, which seems like a good thing. So they're reevaluating the umpires, and what they're doing is they used to have a 2-inch buffer zone in 2024. Well, now their buffer zone, which is just from the black to just off of the plate, they cut it to less than 3/4 of an inch. So basically 1.25 inches they cut off from the buffer zone, which I'm assuming they're doing it because they know ABS is coming in next year and they want the players to get used to it. The problem is that they didn't tell the players. The players are saying, MLB is saying they told them, but there's more than a few quotes that says that they haven't heard about it. An umpire recently just asked a catcher, I think it might have been Austin Hedges, what do you think of the smaller strike zone? And Austin Hedges just looked at him like, what do you mean smaller strike zone? And then Terry Francona and Mike Schilt, 2 managers, never heard it. And they were in the meeting that MLB said that they gave this information at. So it's a good thing, but handled in the worst way, which seems to be MLB's thing recently. Yeah. I don't know what's your guys' opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like good thing. Like, reduce the buffer zone. Because also, if you look at the buffer zone, it's pretty big. 2 inches on either side. Okay, so if the strike zone is 17 inches wide, and if you got a 2-inch buffer zone on either side, in and out, that's 23% of the strike zone size. That's a huge buffer zone. If you only go 2 inches, that's still 10%. That's a big amount. But to cut it back by so much, over having it, that's a lot. right? Like I feel like if they'd gone, all right, we're going to go down to 1.2 inches, 1.5 inches this year, and then the next year they go down to 1 inch or whatever, I feel like that would be better adjustments. Then and also tell the teams like, what are we doing? Why don't you tell anyone? That's so bizarre.
I I personally loved Francona's quote in that article, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of, "I don't remember being told that, but I don't remember a lot of stuff, so maybe they did it." Something to that effect. It was just very
Right.
like always self-deprecating, but like still giving an answer. Personally, like I agree. It's probably this is a move to get everybody more and more used to ABS. My understanding of that ABS system is going to be that it's going to be very strict. Oh, it's computerized, so it's going to be
Yes.
strict. Additionally, something Oren talks about a lot is how hard it is to hit these days all the time, and shrinking the strike zone, an opportunity to maybe provide some more offense as well. In general, I think it's probably a good move. I do think a little bit of buffer is probably still a good thing overall, just because I do think a little bit of interpretation should be in play, especially if we're still using human umpires. All that being said, I do want to make one zag on this that I half believe. With modern technology and data, the metagame in all sports, including baseball, is very real. These teams know so much now. And in a way, I kind of feel like if the league can do a thing to throw everybody off their game that they're not aware of, like change the baseball maybe in the past, I don't know. I think it adds a little bit of intrigue. I think the idea that these teams have solved the game needs to be messed with. And so do I entirely believe that this is the right way to go about that? No. But the fun that can come out of it is something I'm for at the same time. A little bit of cognitive dissonance there, but I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much. For everybody to not know exactly what the rules are, doesn't bother me.
See, I would agree with that, except that they're like, oh, but we told everyone. Like, don't pretend
I guess
that you
that's
told,
the point.
right?
Then Manfred should come out and go, guess what, guys? I'm changing rules whenever I feel like it, and I'm not going to worry. So,
like, they don't change. They don't tell everyone when if the baseballs are changed because that's been a thing. Like, they don't always have to. Like, I mean, I kind of agree. They don't have to say anything, but like, don't pretend that you did. That's just weird. Like, be honest with it at least. Be like, yeah, that was a thing. We didn't tell anyone because we didn't want to provide a competitive advantage or something, right? Like, don't be like, oh, but we told everyone.
I guess if that was their point, it's not a competitive advantage if everyone is doing it. Like if everyone is playing the same rules, like there's no competitive advantage there. Like I agree, like the offense, like we've probably gotten to the point where like, yes, pitches now have like 20 inches of vertical and horizontal break. They're coming in at what Mason Miller's throwing 105 miles an hour right now. There's only so much the human eye can do. And I kind of wonder if ABS is just going to be necessary. I do like having a human umpire.
So do I.
Yes, agreed.
So I do like that as like a blend. And then you do have to rely on players being smart enough to know, like self-police themselves, because like the first batter, if the leadoff hitter has like taps his helmet 3 times is wrong and they lose the challenge the rest of the game, that's going to be real. That's not going to be a fun dugout walk to go back into. But I guess where I get kind of frustrated is MLB, and we talked about with the baseballs, they think they can just do something when they're working with a players union, and then like they talked with the umpires union. The umpires union you'd think would have the bigger issue with it, and they're fine with it. But the way the last work stoppage happened, and yes, it happened in the off season, and it didn't really affect baseball games because they went up to the wire on it. But it's already contentious between MLBPA and the owners, and the owners are going to do everything they can to probably get a salary cap in this next offseason. So we're looking at another labor stoppage. And MLB just doesn't seem to get that the owners are not the only entity in this game. The players can also cause them to lose money by not playing. And I don't know. It just seems very weird to me that they don't communicate that well with the players union.
No, that's a very good point. That, angering, making changes like this a year before a collective bargaining session could potentially anger one of the parties involved.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I mean, everyone who's like really into baseball at this point, it's pretty much an open secret. It's probably gonna come down to the wire at least in this next off season. Like everyone knows it. It's pretty much, and now they're like making it worse. It's like why?
So they can get their salary cap.
Yeah.
That's why. I mean, because they will do whatever they want, whatever they can to win. But also, what I don't get is if you're going to do this buffer zone, and you're already going to change things without telling the player, just put in the ABS. Like, what is stopping you? If you're setting this up for the ABS next year, just do it this year. You did it in spring training, and you seem to have communicated that well. But you decide to ignore?
Do either of you have a vibe for how that ABS challenge system went over in spring training? I just didn't follow it closely enough. To me, it's if it went well, let's do it.
Right.
I think
I don't know if it's outfitted in the stadiums, though.
I didn't hear anyone complain about it. I loved it. Because it was finally like, what was it? Was it the Wyatt Langford Angel Hernandez thing that broke everyone's back, where he called the ball like 4 inches off of the plate and then did it 2 other times the same plate appearance? Like
the one where a few years ago Schwarber lost his mind on Angel Hernandez. That one gets me every time. It's great.
Yeah. So I get it. And like they're in the Athletic article too, they did say like the strike zone has been called more accurately this year than it has since they've been tracking it. And that's great. That would make sense though, because you're just telling the umpires to call a tighter zone. So like balls are getting called more accurately than before. Strikes are getting called about the same. I think they even dipped down a little bit, but that's just interesting. Just a little interesting.
I have an excuse for why Logan Allen's walk per 9 is like 8 right now. So yeah, not going well for him. Ask him how he feels about the buffer zone.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Anyway, we kind of skipped over this, but I did just want to go just over like the standings and then just kind of how the teams have been playing over the last couple of weeks. And honestly, it's been fairly good baseball over since the last time we met. Detroit is still leading the division by 2 games. By a game. Cleveland and Kansas City are both above 21s. Minnesota has been 6-4, but they're still 4 games under 500. And then the White Sox are 10-16. The run differential.
10-26.
Oh, sorry, 10-26. They're not a powerhouse. That would be a shocker, though. The run differential, though, still kind of crazy. The Guardians have picked up, kind of dug out of their hole that they dug in last week. The Twins now have a positive run differential. KC, who's been on a real big hot streak, just at the time that Sam thought that they were not dead in the water, but really needed to see something, they've been doing it. And then the Tigers have just been juggernauts all year that I don't see how anyone can deny the Tigers at this point.
It's called we beat up on the Angels for 3 games.
You still did it though, and you didn't outscore them 63 runs in those games.
That's true.
They're also playing. They're doing exactly like the blueprint you want to see. They're dominant at home. They're 500 basically on the road, and they're 500 against teams above 500. That is like the blueprint of having a good dominant team. So good for them. Like it looks like they're backing it up. Standings this is just kind of show like where everyone else is in the division, just to kind of show that the AL Central looks like it's more competitive than probably the first couple weeks thought it was, after KC and obviously Minnesota had a slow start. OPS leaders, Detroit still 2nd, Cleveland 6th, Minnesota 8th, and then KC 12th, White Sox 15th. The ERA is surprising to me, not because like the Tigers and Royals, we've been talking about how good they are. The Twins have been surging. The White Sox, but like the Guardians at being 11th in the league at 4.31 team ERA is very surprising to me. Dan, why? This is not Cleveland.
Shane Bieber can't get healthy fast enough. Inconsistency. It's that simple. Gavin Williams is a perfect example of this, where he came out 3 starts ago, pitched 6 innings of, I think, 1 run ball against the Yankees. Yankees, by the way, good offense, and hasn't been able to pitch out of the 3rd inning in either his last 2 starts. So it's the starting pitching in particular has been very up and down, and a lot of down. 27th in expected FIP over the last 2 weeks. And is a specific stat that I was able to pull on that. I think 25th in ERA. So just need more consistent starts out of everybody. They had a couple last week. Luis Ortiz and Tanner Bybee back to back really put the bullpen in a better place at a really important time. I had mentioned last week we were going through a situation where we were playing 13 games in 12 days. That span ended today, and they ended up going 8-5 over that course of time, even with all the issues they had. And then as far as the bullpen goes, the bullpen was otherworldly last year, and it's been just between good and great so far this year instead. So they put a lot of miles on last year. We'll kind of see how that goes again this year. The starting rotation again isn't doing them any favors and not doing that again. But it's just a matter of guys pitching into the 6th inning and pitching effective enough to do so time after time.
Lee, the Tigers have been dominant. Anything else you would like to brag about?
Yes, I would like to talk about the second game against the Angels. That 9th inning was actually historic. So I mentioned it earlier. Riley Green hit 2 home runs in the 9th inning. First time in MLB history that a player is at 2 home runs in the 9th inning. That is only the 3rd time in franchise history that a Tigers player has hit 2 home runs in an inning. First time that a player has done it while on the road. Tigers hit 4 home runs that inning. That is the first time in Tigers history to have done that. It's also the first time in MLB since 2006. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, they beat up on the Angels. What more is there to say? Had a historic 9th inning, and I was at work. I was driving and listening to the radio, trying not to lose my mind because they kept hitting more home runs. It was fantastic. But just wanted to talk about that 9th inning because there were records broken for the Tigers in that
one. For Minnesota, they responded well. They they lost the series to Cleveland 3-1, which I don't know. Progressive Field is either in their head, there's some type of hex on it. I don't know what goes on, but Minnesota forgets how to play baseball when they're in Cleveland. They followed up. They have a series win in Boston, and they're playing the Baltimore right now, who Baltimore does not look good. Which is they have no pitching. I mean, right, Charlie Moore. They're right now. They won yesterday 9-1, and then they're up 3-2 in the 5th right now. But yeah, they have another series against Baltimore, and I forget who they play next. Oh, it's San Francisco coming up. So they're still 4 games under 500, but that's a lot better than the 9 games under 500 they were 2 weeks ago. So I'll take it. And they're getting healthy for now, I guess. So because Dan wants to rub it in my face and just will not let me forgive this series, we do have to cover the last game in the Twins Guardians series, and I'm just gonna close my ears.
I forgot the hit totals were what they were. Eric, if you can hear me through your closed ears, I just need to ask at this point. I swear I'm not rubbing it in. You mentioned it a minute ago. Are the Twins just psyched out by going to Cleveland right now? Is this mental at this point?
I still think it's how you will, if you play rock, paper, scissors and you lose 5 games in a row, I think a lot of it's just random chance. 1-run games, if you can always look at the team that does best in 1-run games, yes, they probably have a good bullpen, but you can't look at 1-run games as a predictive stat to the next year. Yeah. Now that typically goes for 1 year. We're not going on 4.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like the Twins 0-18 playoff streak, if that was getting in the players' minds. And I'm sure it was a little bit, but you can't be using that. I just think Cleveland, I feel like the Twins' identity has shifted. They're no longer the Bomba Squad where they set the major league record in 2019. They're now kind of modeling themselves after the Twins, which makes sense because Derek Falvey was taken from the Twins and he's the one that put this roster together. They're now deep in pitching and they're hitting. They're more line drive hitters, single hitters than they are anything. And they have a couple, like they'll hit the occasional home run, but they don't strike out nearly as much as they used to. But the offense has just gone down. And I just think Cleveland is better at that game.
That makes sense. I can see that in particular, where they're playing a similar style of ball, and one team's just been doing it longer and is maybe a little more brushed up on it at this point. Okay.
Because even just think of like Class A and Duran I think are good.
Yeah,
is a good example. Class A is better than Duran, and I think a lot of Duran. The bullpens are pretty similar. They have a pretty. I mean, I think Minnesota's depth this year for starting pitching might be a little bit deeper than Cleveland's, but that certainly hasn't been the case the last couple of years. And then it's been like the thing with Cleveland. I felt like, especially in the last 5 years, it's been scars and scrubs. It's who can you fill in against either Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez or Jose Ramirez and Steven Kwan.
Yeah.
And then what other hodgepodge of parts can you put together around them and hope that they put it together?
Whereas, like you said before, you've got your guys. It's Correa, it's Buxton, and it's Lewis if he's around, which hopefully he's around more.
Let's hope.
Okay. There was one particular thing I wanted to talk about this last game of the series, and I alluded to it before. This ended up going to extras into the 10th. Steven Kwan was the man on second, the Manfred runner, the ghost runner, whatever you want to call it. And he was moved. First at bat was Gabriel Arias, ground ball, something to that effect, got him over to third base. Jose Ramirez comes up, 1 out, man on third. And the decision was made by Rocco Baldelli in this instance to not put Jose Ramirez on. We were going to pitch to Jose Ramirez with first base open. Ramirez proceeded to single into right field and drive in Kwan, steal second. That was the 250th stolen base that I mentioned a moment ago, and then was driven in on an RBI base hit by Angel Martinez to win the ball game. So there's just a very interesting decision at the time. I thought it was interesting either way it went at the time. I had mentioned it to you guys, but I was just shocked that they wouldn't put him on there. That apparently Rocco Baldelli thinks enough of Kyle Manzardo that they were going to roll the dice there with Jose Ramirez. Yeah. No knock on Manzardo because he's been excellent so far, but he's been hitting more power than average.
Well, I also think of it. Okay, so you walk in. Now there's 1 on first, 1 on third, no 1 out, right? There's 1 out, and then he's still second because he's still second when he got out in the first place, and then you got 2 runners in scoring position with 1 out, and you can't do the force out. Like, and you're going to end up in the same spot anyway.
That's a good point. The other argument against it is an old adage, which is you don't walk the winning run on base.
Right.
You don't intentionally walk the winning run on base. It was just an interesting scenario there. And
I can't remember who was on the mound in the 10th. Was that Duran or he was probably in the 9th?
I think he pitched the 9th.
So it's probably Varland. So, I mean, Varland. Assuming it was Varland, I'm going to assume like if you put Ramirez on, he's going to steal anyway. So maybe their thought was there is a 2/3 chance he gets an out. But I don't know. It is interesting. I don't know. I don't have too much to say on it because I want to just black the series out of my mind. But it's not. Rocco has had some interesting decisions this year.
It was Topa, who's been pretty good so far this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I probably would have walked him. Topa's fine. He had a really good year, a couple of years with Seattle. They got him in the Jorge Polanco trade, but he's been iffy. He missed most of last year, but he's looked fine this year, I guess. He's just a dude, I guess. Not he's not good. He's bad. I'm in between. I do like now. Because now, like, Tom Hamilton now knows that the 1-run thing, so, like, he gets real giddy if it's a tie game with the Twins in the 8th, because it's just like, oh, boy, we're doing it again. Joy is imminent. There's no discussion. We're all going to be happy in about 20 minutes. Buckle up, everyone.
He's going to be so distraught when it finally doesn't happen, which at some point, law of averages.
Yeah, you would think that, but the Twins are pretty good. Are known for like pretty lengthy streaks
That's fair.
of suck. But I did want to talk. I did like a little bit of a not a deep dive. I was looking at Cleveland's team page on Baseball Reference, and I noticed their outfield was interesting. So I wanted to kind of just compare that to the other divisions or to the other teams in the division, and then just kind of talk about the outfield situation because I feel it's kind of interesting, than more interesting than you would think on the surface. So I'm going to show what I originally saw. So I pulled up the 2025 stats and then compared them. And Cleveland's outfield is Stephen Kwan and no one else. No one else productive.
Yeah, so obviously we've talked at length about Quan at this point. The big kind of loss here has been Lane Thomas. I've talked about him on the pod a little bit before. He's still out with that wrist injury. But even before that, he was struggling. My take on him is he's incredibly streaky. He was obviously red hot in the playoffs last year, but was really rough when they first traded for him. So he was in the middle of a cold streak when he got hurt and hasn't been heard from since. That's not going to be, a year thing by any means, but he's out. And that kind of left a hole in center field. Angel Martinez has probably been the best of the rest here. And what I would kind of describe him as is what the Guardians were hoping Miles Straw would be, but not quite as good defensively. He's a light hitting center fielder, but he is actually hitting for average. He's got some speed. He's not going to hit a bunch of home runs, but he's hitting line drives, getting on base. And then he is a converted infielder, middle infielder, and he's been pretty solid out there. He's made some nice plays. I don't know what the metrics look like on him defensively, but for a guy that was playing infield until about halfway through last year, he went home over the course of the winter and worked hard on playing the outfield because he knew that was his opportunity to get to the majors and stay. And all things considered, obviously the WAR isn't great there, but he's been decent. The rest, we've talked about Nolan Jones. I had talked about how I was hoping he would kind of be bounced back here because the underlying metrics look good. It's starting to look like maybe no. There's just so much swing and miss there. He did hit a ball into the second deck of the National Stadium yesterday, but it just seems like it's too few and far between. And then the last guy there, Big Christmas, really hasn't had enough playing time, really, in my opinion, to really make a read on him. I think they've been trying to play Jones out of his slump, and it hasn't worked. But again, another guy with a lot of swing and miss. But I think, the answer there would be if Noel maybe was getting more consistent at bats, he'd be hitting a little bit better. So again, they're not ideal here other than Quan. But, getting Lane back would be huge. And then you only have to play one of those other guys, and maybe it's Martinez.
Noel's good in the outfield, right? Like defensively?
He's got a reputation as being kind of big and slow. I actually think he's better than he gets perceived. They purposely play him deep to simplify things for him so that, old school theory, coming in is faster than going backwards. They play him deep a lot. He's got a fantastic arm. He's got a cannon. I think they found ways to take probably a slightly below average right fielder and turn him into an average or maybe slightly above average right fielder.
Mm-hmm. Is the bat going to come for him?
Again, I think he needs at-bats. It's a big question. I remember a couple of years ago being asked about him when he was in the minors, and the strikeout rate at single A was just atrocious. And at that point, I was like, this guy's not even going to make it to the major. But the power is real. It's a team that's starved for power often. He's going to get a lot of opportunities. The chase rate's got to come down. So this, better swing decisions, better chase rate. If he can do that, he hits the ball hard.
Yeah,
a lot. But he's got to swing and miss less. If you were to put a gun to my head, I don't think he makes it, but I don't think it's ridiculous if he did.
Sure. And he's only like 24, 25.
He's a young guy still, yeah.
Really young. Interesting. Who's there, like down in the minor league? I'm assuming if they had someone in AAA ready to come up, they would have already pulled him up. But who is there an outfield prospect that's somewhat promising?
Oh gosh, no one's coming to mind off the top of my head. Some Guardians fan listening to this is screaming right now because I can't think of anybody.
No, fair enough. And like I did put you on the spot too.
The one that comes to mind is Jonathan Rodriguez, who we saw already. He's tearing up AAA, but he just seems like a quad A player to me. Anytime he's been up, he walks a lot and doesn't do much else.
No, well, the 2002 A's would love him. So next, so I thought I'm gonna be very. When I first saw that out, that I was like, that has to be the worst in the division, right? Turns out, no. I'm not going to talk it briefly, but I'm going to ask Sam about this on Friday when we talk because the Royals refused to not play Hunter Renfroe, who is single-handedly tearing down the Royals offense. He's hitting 160 with a 200 slug.
Oh man.
That is brutally, when your claim to fame is power and your slugging percentage is not even just a terrible batting average, you know you're screwing up. Kyle Isbell, I don't think has ever been known for a bat first guy, so like he's always seemed like the great defensive center fielder. MJ Melendez can no longer hurt the team in Omaha, and then Drew Waters was just called up. But I also didn't realize how many games Jonathan India had played. He's now considered their starting left fielder on Baseball Reference, so that was interesting to me. I thought he was playing third base, but I think as much as I wanted to think that Cleveland maybe had the worst outfield like production, Hunter Renfroe he's been almost as bad as Stephen Kwan has been good.
That negative 1.5 WAR this early in the season, that's impressive.
After 26 games.
Yeah. Oh man.
A lot of at bats.
Like you gotta work that hard. You gotta work hard to get negative 1.5. That's something.
I mean, he just also has to rate as just a brutal defender too. Because like if you look, MJ
Dylan
Melendez,
Dingler just walked for the first time this season.
Oh my God. It finally happened. His fourth career walk.
Sorry, I had to shout that out. He just walked for the first time.
Well, it didn't help. We also talked about that for about 10 minutes before we got on the air about how Dylan Dingler is maybe chasing a bit too much, and he has no walks. Outrageous. Did they just beat him? Is that what happened?
No, he was a legitimate walk. 3-1 pitch outside. He took it.
Was it close?
Kinda.
Nah. Would it have been in the old buffer zone?
Maybe. It's kind of hard to tell. I didn't get a fantastic look at it. I just looked up.
Sorry.
And saw he was walking. Yeah, putting me on the spot here with these analytics.
My bad.
Ooh, nice. There we go. Sweeney just got a hit into left field that the left fielder completely missed. I guess that's our number 30 left fielder.
So next, anyway. The White Sox, other than their outrageous amount of position players they've had, this is also they've had more outfielders than the ones on the screen, but I also couldn't search for more than 6. So their production has been decent. Luis Robert, I know Oren is pretty sour on Luis Robert, but he's looked at least decent. The batting average isn't there, but he must be doing something right. At least popping.
I think he's started picking it up the past couple of weeks, so like the numbers haven't like evened out quite yet.
No. Then you have Benintendi, who just went on the IL, but he's been decent. And then the rest of the guys just really haven't played outside of Michael A. Taylor, who's always been known for his defense. I think he's playing more left field this year than anything, so he's not really killing them. The rest just haven't played, so like they're just an interesting group. And then Austin Slater, I think, is he still a prospect? I don't know. This is why I probably shouldn't talk about other teams other than the Twins. So, and then the Tigers with a surprise outfielder nobody saw coming.
Yeah. So if you had told me this time last year that our top 3 position players were Javi Baez, as he just hit in a couple runs here. Our top 3 position players would be Javier Baez, Zach McKinstry, and Spencer Torkelson. I would have said, what went wrong? Where's Kerry Carpenter and Riley Green? But they're just actually playing really good. Javier Baez, I saw someone like one of those news things had done like a top 10 center fielders, and someone retweeted it and said, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Javier Baez should be on that list. He's been legitimately good. Like he's hitting 300. He's got an 829 OPS. He's his OPS plus, if it ended right, if this carried on the entire season, would be the best in his career. He hit 3 home runs in 3 days last week. On the first day, the first Angels game, he robbed a home run and hit a home run. So he's one of the best defensive center fielders so far this year. I mean, I don't know how long this is going to last because the underlying numbers for him are disgusting, and that in like a bad way. But I am going to hold on to this for as long as possible because it is amazing to watch. And I've forgotten, because he's been so bad for so long, how fun Javi Baez is when he's like not the worst batter in the MLB. So he's been really good. And Zach McKinstry also with the 1.3 WAR, which matches his career high in a season. He's been hit. He just gets on base a ton, not a lot of power, but he hits the ball a lot and he walks a lot, and he's pretty decent defensively. I think he's probably better at left. He's probably better at third defensively than he is in the outfield, but we don't have a lot of outfielders right now, and he's pretty good in the outfield anyway. And then we got Kerry Carpenter and Riley Green, who mash, and they've been like Riley had a pretty bad slump, but I mean, AL Player of the Week last week. He's looking like he's probably going to be an all-star again. Kerry Carpenter is hitting the ball hard again because that's just what he does. So we have a really good outfield all of a sudden. It's great. And then we're still missing Matt Vierling and Parker Meadows. So there's someone else on Twitter joke that if you had said that we had a Gold Glove center fielder, I would have believed you, but not that it was Javi Baez.
Javier Baez.
Yeah, he's just been good. I miss Parker still, though. Please come back. But anyway,
He'll think about it.
Yeah,
he feels like you don't miss him anymore, so he's just going to stay on the IL longer.
No, come back. I still miss him. If he didn't miss the first 2 months, he probably would have been a goal. Parker Meadows is Gold Glove material. But now that he missed 2 months of the season, he's not going to be. Anyway, that's a tangent on its own. Sorry, Tigers are hitting well. I don't know. There's a lot going on in my mind right now. Anyway, sorry. Tigers have 2 on, nobody out right now, and they scored 2 earlier this inning. Anyway, our outfield is legitimately, like, I could say top 5 in the league. I feel like that wouldn't be crazy. Because
I haven't looked at the rest of the league to know if that's crazy or not. I did note could you put that in a Discord group about Javier Baez maybe being a top 10 like center fielder. There's a lot, like there's like a new generation of center fielders now. The only familiar name that I really knew was like Buxton, because like Judge moved to right field and Trout's playing in right field, and then there's a lot of 1 to 3 year players that have taken over. So that's I'm not going to tell you it's true that Javier Baez should be considered a top 10 center fielder, but it does look like it's a weak class, but that's just because I'm not familiar with any of the names yet.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to make an argument that he is. I'm saying that it's not crazy to say that he is, if that makes sense. Like
it's less crazy.
Yeah, you can make an argument for it, is what I'm saying, and it's not insane to say. But anyway, our outfield is really good, and we're gonna get Vierling and Meadows back soon. So I'm very excited for that.
I'm a Fangraphs guy, so Fangraphs for outfielders so far this year, team outfield.
Yep.
Detroit's 5th in outfield WAR.
All right.
Guess who's last?
I'm going to say Kansas City because on a run.
Kansas City.
Okay.
-0.8 WAR.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Hunter Renfroe carrying that on his shoulders.
What's Cleveland?
24th.
Okay. Well, still not last.
They're the last team above replacement level.
It still works.
Pittsburgh
just tied it up. Yes,
Pittsburgh
right.
0 is 25th. White Sox, Rockies, Braves, Angels, Royals.
I suppose they lost Profar and Acuna hasn't played
Yeah.
yet. I can buy that. So the last team we'll talk about is for the outfield is the Twins. Kind of a mixed bag, but it's in general this doesn't necessarily show up on here. Their outfield defense has been incredibly fun to watch. Buxton is finally healthy. Harrison Bader has been playing outside his mind. I think he has like 5 outs above average, which I think is like 98th percentile or something like that. He's been playing in left a lot. Buxton, I think, has 3 outs above average. And then the only value Deshaun Kersey brings is defense and base running, even though he's been thrown out quite a bit. It's just been fun to watch. Their top 3 outfield would be Bader, Wallner, and Buxton. Wallner's going to be out for 2 months, I think, with an oblique strain, which really hurts because he can be he's kind of I think if he would have played a full season this year or hasn't gotten hurt, I think he would be on a list of players on a breakout. Like, he's already been like one of the Twins' better hitters, but he's that stereotypical just 6'5", 250, all the power in the world, strikes out a lot. So you would expect him to be, I don't know, just like what was the guy's name? Adam Dunn type. And he kind of is, but he also has 100th percentile arm in right field that he likes to unleash quite a bit. And I won't call him fast, but he's a lot faster than you would think a 6'5", 250 pounder would be. And he has a moose celebration every time he hits a home run, which for somebody who looks like that, having a moose celebration seems to be really fitting. But Buxton looks healthy. I know I talk about him a lot because I want to cherish a healthy Buxton while I can, because it's not guaranteed, and I'm taking every moment, and he's just a fun player to watch. And then Trevor Larnach has been solid. He kind of had a breakthrough year last year where I don't think he's ever going to be above like a top, I don't know, 10 corner outfielder in the league, top 10 or top 20, but he's decent. He'll pop a home run every once in a while. Solid. Like, might be a starting left fielder for a couple of years and then move on to a backup role or like a DH platoon type thing. So that's it for the outfield. I just wanted to take a little bit of a tangent. But that wasn't even our original secondary topic. So we were thinking of something else to talk about earlier this week. And Sam actually came up of, hey, what if we just talk about random things that happen that we wanted to bring up? So we have a couple of those. So we're not going to cover the Royals or the White Sox one because Oren and Sam can do that for them. But we can start off with Cleveland and what happened with Mike Hargrove.
So the way I took this topic was things that I, for whatever reason, remember from the past that maybe most people don't. And this one, my first remember when I have 2. There's remember whens within the remember when. So back in the 90s,
Meta.
when the Indians were quite good, they would put a VHS tape out every year with like a season recap. They did several of these. In fact, in 1995, they did 2. One was called Wahoo, What a Finish, which, they had like 13 walk-off wins that year at a brand new ballpark. So they sold that, and they did the top 10 walk-offs that year. And then they had the Cleveland Rocks, which was the story of the 1995.
Yeah.
Anyway, history lesson matters because I distinctly remember this first remember when, because it was on the 1998 VHS tape, which you're going to see here momentarily. The story behind this, though, is, and my dad and I bring this up every once in a while because we both watched that video dozens of times at this point. This is, I believe, Game 2 of the ALDS in 1998 against the Boston Red Sox in Jacobs Field at the time. Dwight Gooden is starting for the Indians. Another remember when. Remember when Dwight Gooden played for the
Indians? Yeah, that
Indians?
is weird. I did not know that was a thing.
He was a veteran starting pitcher added on to the rotation for the 1998 season. The other reason why I remember Dwight Gooden on the 1999 Indians is because he was on their roster for Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball for the N64, one of the games I played more than anything ever. In this case, Goodman was getting squeezed. The two of the first three pitches were called balls by umpire Joe Brickman, and Mike Hargrove was enraged enough to go out, talk to Gooden, and then go after Brinkman. This is 3 pitches into the game. He gets tossed. That's followed up by a double here. John Valentin's coming around third, and you'll not be able to necessarily tell here, but Valentin's called safe. They're going to show a closer up version slowed down here momentarily, where you're going to see that Valentin's actually out, and it's pretty noticeable here. So yeah,
the first time
out.
around is like, oh, he's out.
So 2 bad calls, a play at the plate, and Dwight Gooden decides to go after Joe Brinkman and is needing to be restrained. He has obviously been ejected from the ball game, but something that I just remember from the past, thanks to this lovely video that I've watched, the time Mike Hargrove got thrown out 3 pitches into an ALDS game, and then Dwight Gooden tried to chase after the home plate umpire. So that's item number 1. Unfortunately, I don't really have as good of a visual aid for item number 2, but Juan Gonzalez was a fantastic ball player in the American League, really, for quite a while. I think he won 2 MVPs. Am I right on that? Yeah, 2 MVPs. Yeah. And interestingly, one of the things I remember about him is he actually played in Detroit for a couple years, and right when they moved into Comerica Park. And you'll see that his power numbers took a precipitous decline that 1 year in Comerica. The Indians were able to parlay that into a pretty cost-effective contract for the 2001 season. Manny Ramirez had just left the team, and they were able to replace Manny Ramirez with Juan Gonzalez. He had a fantastic year that year, filled the void very well. 35 home runs, 140 RBI, all that good stuff. He left again after that one prove-it season and was never really the same ball player. And in 2005, Juan Gonzalez was signed by the Indians, I believe, either to a cost-effective major league deal or a minor league deal. I don't remember the exact details. But he was injured. He had been injured. He had been dealing with back issues for a couple of years at that point, and he missed the beginning of the season. He ended up being called up to the majors for a game on May 31st, 2005. It was a game against the Minnesota Twins in the Metrodome, if I'm not mistaken. Gonzalez, he was hitting cleanup that day, playing right field. The top of the first, he came up with 2 outs and a man on, and swung, hit a ground ball to third. Upon running to first base, he tore his right medial hamstring totally off the bone at the knee joint. That's per Wikipedia.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so Juan Gonzalez, his 2005 tenure with the Cleveland Indians was 1 at bat. Although he was slated to play right field, he never actually touched the Metrodome right field turf. That was the entirety of his season with the Cleveland Indians. And again, just something that for whatever reason, dumb things that stay in my brain. Those are 2 among them. Thanks for listening.
Dude, from what I've heard of Juan Gonzalez, him not playing right field that day was probably helped the team.
Also true. I was kind of, when I first wanted to look this up to like fact check myself, I was kind of thinking who was going to DH, but that team, last week's topic, Travis Hafner, was the DH. So no, he was going to play right field until he wasn't.
Yeah, until he didn't have the option to. I always he was when you think, I think it was either Baseball's Not Dead or No Left Fielders did a video on Juan Gonzalez about how everyone assumed he was going into the Hall of Fame because he was the RBI home run average guy, and he did really nothing else well. So they looked at his career WAR, it was only 38, and I think if you would have asked someone in 1999, they would have said he's probably a first ballot, second ballot Hall of Fame type guy, and he didn't even sniff the ballot.
No, he's a dude from 1985's idea of a really good baseball player.
Yeah.
To the point that he won the MVP in 95? Was it? No, Mo Vaughn won it in 95. One of the years he won it, Albert Bell probably should have won it, is what I was trying to get. He was a good ball player in any era. Yeah, 96.
But I mean, after that, he still had I mean, it was the steroid era, but he still had a 132 OPS plus, like
Yep.
in the steroid era. And even his big years were right in the middle of it 145, 131, 149 for OPS plus. Like he was good. He just did nothing else other than hit bombs. And
Yeah. I'm in no way trying to suggest that he wasn't an excellent power hitter.
yeah.
But yeah, those numbers popped. Not much else did other than maybe his hamstring later on.
Ugh. Anytime you tear something off the bone, that's never a great sign.
No.
That's ouch. Yeah. Sucks.
All right, Detroit. I have never heard this story, Lee, so you're going to have to take this.
Yeah, so I have two. But this is the first one. And this is okay, so Tigers fans are going to be familiar with this. So Mario Impemba, I think I was saying that right, and Rod Allen, they were they were the broadcast booth for like 16 years, right? They were really good. And Jackson Jim just gave up a 2-1 homer. They were really good, but they also did not get along like at all. They were not friends. They were hardly friendly. Like you spend 16 years working together every day for half a year. I don't know how you don't at least get a little bit friendly with each other. But the story of how that their tenure at Detroit ended is very ridiculous. So what first came out was that Mario and Rod got that the Rod physically choked Mario over a chair, and that was a bit of an exaggeration, but not by much. So apparently, as the story goes, Rod Allen had or Impemba had back pain, right? And there was just one chair in the broadcast booth that was like better than the other chair, and he wanted that chair because he had back pain and like it was better and more comfortable for him, right? But they had an argument about that like before the game, and then the broadcast was really uncomfortable and awkward. But then after the game ended, they argued about something, and that fight devolved, and Allen physically assaulted Mario, and to the extent of which is a little unclear, but apparently it wasn't a chokehold. But it was a
It wasn't a chokehold.
Is
that what it said in the police report?
There was no police report filed. It was just, yes, but the original report that came out was that he choked him, which apparently isn't true. His agent has said that that's not true. And other people have said that's not true. But he did, this is a description from the Detroit Free Press article. Let's see. Let me get sorry, I'm scrolling to find it. Yeah.
So you're telling me two grown men argued over a chair that ended in a chokehold?
It wasn't okay. So it wasn't just about the chair. It was like
but
more
it was
about
kind
that.
of about the chair.
It was kind of about the chair. Yes. So it's kind of a little bit of Detroit lore that they fought over. Okay, here it is. It continued with Impemba's finger in Allen's face and ended after Allen put his arms above Impemba's shoulder below his chin, pushing him up against the wall before the two were separated. So, yeah. So they fought over a chair. They were promptly suspended for the rest of the season. That's how we got Shep and Gibby in the broadcast booth, which continued after. And their contracts were not renewed at the end of the 2018 season. Shocker there, but a little bit of Detroit lore. That time, Rod and Allen, their time ended because they got in a fight over a chair. I mean, if there's a comfy chair, I kind of get it, but it's kind of ridiculous.
No, you don't get it. The only proper fight with a chair is WWE style, and they did not do it right.
That's where I was headed. Somebody needed to hit somebody else with the chair.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like a bit of lore. I had to look up shout out to Anthony Fenich for this article from 2018, clearing that up. What really happened between Detroit Tigers, Mario Impemba, and Rod Allen? Because the story that first came out was that Rod Allen choked Mario, and that was a bit of an exaggeration. But they did get in a physical altercation over this chair. It's pretty funny.
That pose suits you, Eric, just so you know.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be the world champion, and there's only so many times I can be. I can bring out this title belt and not look ridiculous. So I say, but maybe I'll just pull it out from time to time. But they really screwed that up.
Unfortunately, the chair was not involved in the physical altercation. They
That's
just
just their loss.
pushed each
Then they
other a
deserve to
little
be
bit.
fired. No
Yeah.
sympathy for them.
So that was my first one, and then my second one was just a funny little goofy thing of when Casey Mize's RBI. Yeah,
Oh, no.
2021 comes up to the plate and is promptly walked on 4 pitches. But he does a bat flip.
I was about to say a bat flip for it. What a son of a bitch. What an a-hole. Why not?
And then he does the home run bow and arrow celebration at first. But the great thing is, when I was looking for it, I realized, wait a second, the pitcher is Jack Flaherty.
The ghost of Nolan Ryan is furious right now, and he's not even dead yet.
On 4 pitches, he didn't throw him a strike.
On 4 pitches.
What would he be more upset about? Would Nolan be more upset over walking a pitcher on 4 pitches or the bat flip for it? Both are equally outrageous. God. All right. It's fun,
I just wanted to shout that out because it's hilarious. I think that was legitimately one of the best parts of 2021 Tigers season because we did not have a lot of bright spots that season. It's hilarious.
Did Casey Mize have a second at bat? Because I suspect he didn't.
That game, I think he struck out. Well, I know on his Baseball Reference, he has 1 walk and 1 strikeout. So
okay. I'm going to guess he struck out first because he would have gotten one in the ear hole, I think, if he had him that bad after.
But yeah, I just thought it was hilarious. Also, that the opposing pitcher was current Tiger Jack Flaherty, which is hilarious.
Can't hate it.
I love the bat flip too. I mean, it's everything about that is fantastic.
It was very nonchalant. So I don't have video. I have 2 very quick ones. One, I didn't find the video of it, but a rookie, Rocco Baldelli, which apparently Dan hates for some reason because the Guardians don't beat the Twins enough, but that's fine. Rocco Baldelli hit his first major league home run in the Metrodome, I believe off of, was it Radke? I'd have to look that up, but that's a nice little fun moment for everyone. Back when Rocco was a pretty good prospect. The one I wanted to talk about is extra fun if you remember watching the Twins in the 2000s, particularly because the Piranhas were a thing. So, and the best part about the Piranhas is that famous level-headed strategist Ozzie Guillen got really frustrated with them after a game. And sometime in 2006, he said, quote, all those Piranhas, blooper here, beat out the ground ball, hit a home run. They get up by 4. They get up by 4 with that bullpen. You see the national anthem tomorrow. Then I sit down and take a look at the lineup. Give me the New York Yankees. Give me them guys because they've got holes. You can pitch around them. You can pitch to them. These little guys, Castillo, all of them, people worry about the catcher, what's his name? Mauer? Yeah, fine. A good hitter. Don't worry about the little guys. They're on base all the time. Which I'm going to show you the team in 2006. That catcher, Mauer was an all-star, 6th MVP, and Justin Morneau literally won the MVP that year. But according to Ozzie Guillen, you don't worry about them. You worry about the 6-headed monster that is Luis Castillo, Jason Tyner, Shannon Stewart, Jason Bartlick, Nick Punto, and Lou Ford, who hit a whopping, 5, 7, 9, 12 home runs between the 6 of them. Shannon Stewart barely played. He's barely a piranha, but he was somewhat speedy. They did nothing but pound the ball into the ground and just got on first. Luis Castillo was probably like the most famous of that group. Nick Punto is kind of a bit of a folk hero in Minnesota because he was just that gritty, never really good at anything in baseball, but just was fun to watch. And he slid into first base head first. Like that's who Nick Punto was. The Metrodome, for those who do not experience the grand ambiance of the Metrodome, had basically a pool table as their infield. And you could, if everyone remembers the Baltimore chop, you could just slap the ball right at like the start, not the dirt, but just where the circle where the dirt ended. And the ball would go about 900 feet in the air and you could do nothing except wait for the guy to get down to first. And the Twins just had a bunch of players that would do that. Their overall impact was probably a bit overstated, but he was right. They didn't strike out. They didn't hit for power. They singled. They didn't even have that great of a success rate for stolen bases, but just because Ozzie Guillen was really pissed at them over one game, which is just so good for my fandom. I did just want to take a look at the roster one time because this is probably the best Twins team on paper that has been in my lifetime. Just because it kind of blended together a couple different teams. You had at the top of the rotation, you had Johan Santana, Carlos Silva, who was really at the tail end. He was actually that proved it. Brad Radke is probably a top 5 Twins pitcher of all time. And then Francisco Liriano, who I talked about a little bit last week, was on fire, and then he got Tommy John surgery. Joe Nathan was an all-star closer at the top of his powers, and then just a good bullpen. But their lineup was just deep. Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau, the Piranhas, Torrey Hunter, Michael Kadire, Rondell White, Jason Kubel came up that year, and then they had Tony Batista, who was basically nothing at the end of his career. But on paper, this was as good as it got for 2006. You had peak Mauer, peak Morneau, a good, still in his prime Torrey Hunter, and then 3 legitimate good starting pitchers in the staff. So. And then, wouldn't you know, that was another team that got swept out by the goddamn Yankees during the 0-18 streak. So, whatever. Not bitter about it at all. But
we can tell.
I have to say, just as somebody else that was cognizant of that time, first of all, yes, as an opponent that watched that 06 team and teams similar to it, I'm not going to go far as Ozzie did, but yeah, that team was infuriating to play against. Just going to say it. At the same time, there's some names there that bring me some serious nostalgia looking at that. You mentioned Radke. To me, that the quintessential AL Central Twins Indians matchup of like the late 90s, early 2000s is like Brad Radke versus Charles Nagy. That just comes to me as I see Brad Radke's name. I'm sure those guys faced off a number of times.
Well, for a while, the Twins were dog water in the 90s. And Nagy and Radke, I think, had very similar tenures with both their teams.
And was Radke a ground ball pitcher? Do I remember that?
Yeah, he was an extreme strike thrower. He was a fly ball pitcher. He gave up a lot of home runs.
Okay.
But he was that pitch to contact because they all were pitch to contact back then. But yeah, was Nagy? I feel like Nagy and him were kind of the same, or no? Or
Nagy was a sinker baller. That was his thing. Is he induced a lot of ground balls.
No. I love these conversations where you guys are talking about stuff from the 2000s and 90s. I'm like, yes, I was 4. I have zero memories of. No, it's fine. I just find it very funny because I'm.
Well, grow up, Lee. Why weren't you alive sooner?
I was just 4. I don't have conscious memories.
Just you wait. Someday I'm going to do 20 minutes on Matt Lawton, and it's going to be great.
Yes, can we? Can we do it now?
Enlighten me.
Him, Jock Jones, and Torrey Hunter, their collective nickname when they played for the Twins was the Soul Patrol. It was great.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
That's fun.
Matt Lawton was a all-star caliber right fielder, not a great fielder if I remember right. All power, kind of speedy. I don't know, he was.
He played for the Indians afterward. And a big part of the reason why is because he killed the Indians. He hit very well against us. They wanted to get in on that action.
Well,
I'm
did
just
they
waiting for
sign him or
someone
did
to
they
clip he
trade
killed the
for him?
Indians and then out of
Oh
context.
Lord, yikes!
U.S. Grant? Talk about.
I'm just better off calling them the Guardians. Period. I shouldn't try to be time specific.
You know, as long as you don't bring up Chief Wahoo, I think we can agree Chief Wahoo was a little bit.
Oh
That
no!
was
By the way, I know, and I recognize he's behind me, but I get it.
right. Well, he's still in Major League, and if you can't get enjoyment out of Major League,
Yep.
one thing about the 2000, like also this is a completely different tangent. The Twins had a lot of like good baseball names in like the 2000s, like Doug Minkiewicz, Michael Kadire, I think is a good one. They had a guy named Boof Bonzer, Boof Bonzer. They had Fat Matt Lecroy as a catcher who was he was built like the smile emoji and hit like it too. Yeah,
Kadire was the other guy I wanted to mention. Fantasy baseball darling of the mid to early 2000s, Michael Kadire. Oh yeah.
You bringing up Rocco Baldelli at a home run, and it made me remember AJ Hinch was on the 03 Tigers, which, if you're not aware, that is the worst Tigers team in franchise history. So I think it was, and it's really cool because Dan Campbell, head coach of the Lions, he was on the 08 Lions, the worst Lions team to ever touch grass. So it's really fun how we've got in Detroit 2 head coaches / managers who were on the worst team of that franchise and then brought those teams back to like relevancy. So this is good stuff. AJ Hinch is his baseball reference stat page is kind of funny because he has a net 0 career WARs. That's pretty impressive to even out at exactly 0.0.
He didn't
Sorry
hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for that side tangent, but
does anybody have quick nostalgia hits before we go into the schedules? Because this could honestly just be us just randomly talking about.
I got one more because Lee mentioned that 03 Tigers team. One of my favorite players from that era, Mike Maroff, starting pitcher for the Tigers, lost 20 games. Lee, if you could, I think you're done with school, right? So could you come back, do a homework assignment, do 20 minutes on Mike Maroff? Because I'd really enjoy that.
Sure. Yeah, man. I don't have classes anymore. I got so much time.
I do not remember it. How do you spell Maroff?
A little left-handed. I'm pretty sure he was a soft tossing left-handed pitcher.
Mike, because now I'm curious, and then I'm sure this is real interesting for everyone just watching us type into try to spell Mike.
Oh, Maroff. Is it Maroth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, in 2003 for the Tigers, he was 9-21.
There you go.
Oh,
look at this nice young man.
Oh, he led MLB in earned runs. That's hilarious.
123.
He kept rolling out there, though.
I love him. This is fantastic.
That wasn't even his worst season. Wait, was St. Louis? What year did St. Louis win the World Series?
2006.
Oh, he was so close. He was there. Yeah, he was after. And
and I know that because they beat the Tigers in 06. That's how I know which year that St. Louis won. But see, in 2003, he was still good for .2 WAR, even with 21 losses.
His ERA plus was 75. Like, it wasn't like he was a complete. I mean, he gave up a lot of home runs.
I can't imagine that the run support was very good on that team.
No, that team was so bad. It was. Yeah, that team was very bad.
Hey, we can look at this. Who was? No, what are we doing here? This. Sorry, again, this has to be just, oh my goodness, look at this. Game result.
Yeah.
Until the White Sox. Who was their best player?
I'm shocked it's not Brandon Inge.
He actually, he didn't hurt him. Ramon Santiago, funny. 1.6.
See, like there's AJ Hinch on there. He was good for negative .2 WAR that year.
Oof, they had 2. Mike Maroff was actually their second best pitcher versus Nate Cornio.
Oh, Nate Cornejo.
Cornejo. Okay. I do not remember him at all. And he was
Omar Infante was on this team. I liked him.
Oh, Dimitri Young, the only bright spot. Boy, that was a bad team. That was fun to watch.
That was a very bad team. That was, I think, if I'm remembering, that was right before we got Jim Leland too. Because Alan Trammell was not a good manager. He was, I mean, we love him in Detroit, obviously for good reasons, but he was not a good manager. And there's a whole bunch of stuff with, I've read about this. I have no memories of this, obviously, because I was one. But there's a bunch of stuff. So basically, no one wanted to come to Detroit because they had been bad. So they overpaid on free agents that didn't work out, and everyone regressed, basically. So they knew this year was going to be bad because it was a rebuilding year. They didn't have a lot of good talent coming in, but they just did worse than what was expected. Is basically it. And then we got Jim Leland. So Jim Leland was good. At least is that.
All right. Well, before we talk for the next 3 hours, I'm going to cut it off because this is an evergreen topic. We can come back to this whenever we need. So
that's true. There's endless content for things that happened in the past that we remember.
And also, we kind of alluded, there might be a player stoppage over the offseason, so we might need to be looking for some topics later in a couple months. So the schedule, this is I don't think it's necessarily all that weird, but this is the first week where no central team plays each other, so we're not going to do predictions. I'm just going to read off the schedule, and then we'll do some closing thoughts. So the Tigers right now are trying to play the Rockies, assuming they don't get rained out again. They go to Texas, Boston, and then playing in Toronto. Cleveland finishing up. Actually, it looks like they beat the Nationals. Had a real weird game doubleheader yesterday. Then they go to at Phillies versus with the Phillies, with the Brewers, and then to the Reds. The Royals finish up against the White Sox tomorrow. The Red Sox, Astros, Cardinals. Twins finish up with Baltimore, go play San Francisco, come back, go to Baltimore, and then go to Brewers for their supposed rivalry, if you want to call it that. And then the White Sox, KC, Marlins, Reds, and then the Cubs, which is an actual rivalry. So nothing to predict. Nothing's really changed other than we all got a point I didn't get a point for Minnesota losing to Cleveland, but that's as far as we got. So I think with that, unless anybody has anything else to add, I think we can put a bow on this one.
No, I think
all right.
Good.
We're straight.
Well, with that, thank you to everyone who's gotten to this point. And then we'll see you probably in the next couple of days. We might post 2 episodes on Friday, but we'll see how motivated I am in the next 2 days to get this edited and posted out. So, all right. Thank you guys.